Welcome back. We are now doing an instant grace for you because it's this topic that we covered in Vivek Misses the Mark, His Critics Deny Reality, episode 116 that you may have just seen. If not, look for the link. But we brought up some stuff there. And we have another clip to riff off today. Jim's going to riff off of it. I'm going to ask questions to see how much further down this rabbit hole we can take you and hopefully leave you with a nice soft landing too. So Jim, what are we looking at today?
So this is a podcast called Due Dissidence. It's one of the things that's in my rotation. I check out clips from them pretty commonly. They're more on the political left of the spectrum, a bit more, I would say, populist left, maybe even a little bit socialist. They're very honest guys that call it as they see it. And here, I believe they're honestly wrong. And their commentary is about Elon, not Vivek in this case, because really that whole debate that Vivek was stepping into the middle of a debate Elon was having with a lot of people on Twitter. He was actually engaging with a lot of regular people. There's this thing where people kind of pretend like, why is Elon? It's like he's stepping down beneath himself to interact with regular people, but he did interact with a lot of regular people in this exchange, and they went through one particular exchange that I think has several lessons in it. I want to hit a couple of those lessons. So if we could we play the clip? This is from the podcast Due Dissidence, and Keaton Weiss is going to be doing the talking.
Gotcha. Here we go.
Referring to bringing in via legal immigration the top 0.1% of engineering talent as being essential for America to keep winning. This is like bringing in the Jokics or H-1B's of the world to help your whole team, which is mostly Americans, win the NBA. Again, we're not a team. You're worth $400 billion. You could end homelessness 20 times over for your net worth, and you haven't volunteered to do it once. You can end homelessness in America. This is what recent estimates are. $20 billion, you can do it. Let's say with inflation, it's $50 billion. You would have $350 billion in net worth left over. You'd still be far and away the richest man in the world. You don't do it. So don't act like there's a big team. There's not a big team. People are not buying this anymore. Even MAGA's not buying this.
So there's a weakness to analogies.
Yeah.
The map is never the territory. It is a representation, or it's something that kind of helps you visualize or picture one aspect of a problem imperfectly. But we know that lots of people think visually, that if they have this an analogy put in front of them, that getting to understanding will happen quicker. But it's an approximation of reality. It is not reality itself.
Yes.
So the idea of a sports team that he's trying to get across here is that the more talent you have on your team, the better your team will do on balance. Like, you can miscoach it or mismanagement if you have a team, but this isn't a team. And he's completely right that it's not a team, but not for the reason that he says. It's not a team because that's an analogy. We're not all on the same team, but we're all part of the same country. And the more talent that we have come into this country, the more we all benefit.
Yes. So let's call it what it is. The more wealthy we can make us.
Well, it directly leads to growth. So you've heard of GDP, right? Yep. So someone else coming into the country, every bit of the economic work that they do, where they buy stuff at the grocery store and they produce something through a job, those things increase the GDP. Okay. So that's one. Two, because they are doing this, they're beginning to apply their creativity. So in the case of Elon, he brought his creativity to the country, and PayPal is one of the byproducts of that. SpaceX, Tesla, other byproducts of that. And there's
let's not forget the Boring Company and the most amazing tool of them all, which is his his flamethrower.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's done something with this, and he is suggesting that we will benefit from bringing other people like him into the country. But one of the things that's wrong in this whole thing is that somehow everybody's pretending like that it needs to be even the top people. Like, he's getting called on this, and and somehow or other he's BSing everybody because it's only about that. And maybe even Elon himself is wrong-headed in how he's doing this. We benefit from every productive person who comes here to the degree that they contribute.
Yes.
So one of the things that they found in this is people started, cashing out the receipts. In fact, you could watch. We will put the link to this episode of Due Dissidence, to the YouTube link. We will put that in the show notes for this Instant Grace installment too. They noticed that there were people being hired for a variety of lower level positions, which these H-1B visas. And this is actually also a good thing. And one of the things, I don't know whether I got it from here or it was another one of the Twitters in the exchange, but they had healthcare workers who were working in old age facilities, right? People that are needing help at the end of their life. And if you've been in one of these facilities, if you have a family member or a close friend that's been in one of these facilities, you know that they're understaffed. You know the staff is not necessarily always top notch. We should want more workers who want to come and do those jobs too, right? We don't have to be going for the top, 1%. And so the fact that they're splitting hairs over who's coming in the door, I think is a byproduct of our awful partisan system. So we're not necessarily a team. They're right about that. But we can understand that the more people are here in our country who are contributing, the better off we are going to be in a variety of ways.
Can I ask you a question that's
Yes.
sort of like implied in this? They use homelessness, but when I hear anyone say, well, so-and-so could end everything by, or fix everything or whatever, just make it all right by writing a check, that really sticks in my craw, Jim.
Well, it does for me too. And I'm glad you brought that up because I believe every one of us has a unique gifting that we bring to the world. And if Elon believed that he could solve homelessness with writing a check, and he cared about solving homelessness by writing a check, he would. So you know how they just criticized him for using a bad analogy?
Right.
Well, they're engaged in a bad analogy as well.
Right.
Because homelessness isn't the only problem out there. And it's not as if the final exam of your humanity is you will write the ultimate check to pay for homelessness. That is not. There are lots of different social problems out there, and people are all uniquely shaped and given their own set of talents and convictions about how to move about in the world and begin helping people.
Yes.
There's people with emotional and mental illness. There's people with there's children that are in unsafe conditions. There's educational needs. There's need after need after need, and each of us are talented and gifted uniquely to move to those things. So Elon is actually working, for example, with people who have paralysis. He's motivated to deal with this problem. He was motivated to deal with an issue we have with fossil fuels to make an electric car. So he's already put his money where his mouth is. And I kind of borderline resent the idea that he's got to pass their exam for being the good person as opposed to, and I could throw the same test back up in their face, all the things they're not caring about. We're not called upon as human beings to care about every single problem that possibly exists. But then let's drill down for just one moment in one more area, and that is let's talk about whether or not he could write the check to solve homelessness.
You mean practically? It would be way more than writing a check.
It'd be way more than writing a check.
Just having the funds, doesn't fix anything. Look at how we've thrown at any social situation so far. How much money have we thrown at climate change or poverty or clean water? That's not the answer. It's not throwing money at it that fixes things.
Okay, somebody like Elon makes the amount of money that they make because they are very, very effective. They have a talent in one area, and that's called resource allocation. They know how to prioritize. There's other people competing for their position. Another team analogy. There's other people that want to be the starter and send them to the bench, decrease their wealth and take over their job, and they go out and compete in the arena of resource allocation. And the best resource allocators win. That's a talent, that's an ability, and we are blessed by that because Elon doesn't enjoy the majority of his wealth. His customers and clients do, okay? His employees enjoy a larger share of his wealth than he does. That's how it works. So when someone has that money, what they're doing, they're in a position, they're being rewarded for their ability to do resource allocation. And Elon is effective at that. And if somebody else could be more effective, they take it away. Okay, let me flip that. He also knows a bad investment when he sees it. So I want to give credit to you, but I was also involved in a project where we helped fund a documentary on this subject, and I appreciate you reminding me of it. There's this mentality called housing first, which I call the flat earth view of homelessness, right? Yep. You see a problem, you say, hey, it'd be a really good idea. There's actually a comedian that stood up and did this. You know why they're homeless? Because they don't have homes. But it's not true. It turns out that once you start to engage, and you know this from personal experience, with the people directly, you find out that it's a multifaceted problem.
Oh, yeah. It's as varied as there are people.
It's very there you go. Okay. It's also unique to them. So the idea that you could write one big check and you could have one grand plan and that somehow that would solve all of it, the answer to that question is unequivocally no. There is one point in this movie that we were involved in helping. I don't remember the name of it, but I'll see if I can get it and put that in the show notes as well, so people can watch this documentary. But in that documentary, they documented the fact that in San Francisco, under a housing first policy, they had basically set up a tent city. And this tent city, the average cost to the taxpayer was paying an average of $60,000 per year per occupant.
Truth. I've seen that number. It's the same in San Diego. A little higher, actually, 65,000.
Okay. They're living in a tent.
In a tent.
And at the equivalent of a mortgage for in my part of the country, that would be a $3,000 square foot, a 3,000 square foot house. That might be 1,000 square foot or 800 square foot, but it's a house. It would have indoor plumbing and heating and cooling and electricity and all the rest of it. They're living in tents with porta potties outside at $60,000 a piece.
Yes.
On a housing first policy, and it doesn't get to the root issues. So Elon doesn't invest in that. He's invested in other things. And at the end of the day, I bring this up and want to have this discussion because I don't like this notion that the rich somehow or other owe the rest of us something. Okay. And the rich is defined as somebody who makes more money than I could possibly imagine myself making. I see this kind of thinking all over the place, and it's horrible thinking, and it leads to disastrous consequences, including the idea that, you know what, we ought to tax the crap out of him.
Oh, yeah. Redistribute everything.
Who, by the way, aren't going to take any grift in the process either.
No, of course.
And then let them solve the problem. And they come up with brilliant ideas like housing first because it sounds good, because they can stand in front of some place and cut a ribbon for it. Mm-hmm. So I think this is wrong. And I think Elon shouldn't have even gotten down to the muck. He made a mistake even getting into the muck of like, I'm only looking for the top, 0.01% of engineers. No, anyone who wants to come here, that ought to be the policy. If they want to work, if they want to contribute, we're all going to benefit if they do in ways that we didn't even have time to get to here. That's my grace message for today.